Welcome to the Red Stories. Subscribe, like, I think it's not difficult for you. Thank you. Hello everyone. Let me start with a brag. Yeah, I know, not the most humble way to begin, but you'll get why soon. I'm 40 years old, and in the last few months, I've been in bed with not one, not two, but three beautiful women. I mean, who can honestly say they'd done that? And I'm not talking about flings or some fantasy scenario. This was real. Each of them was beautiful, sexy, and all part of the plan. Now, before you roll your eyes and think I'm just blowing smoke, let me clear something up. This wasn't about being some stud or having some midlife crisis. It was about revenge. Sweet, calculated revenge on my wife. Yeah, you read that right. This isn't one of those feel-good stories where I find enlightenment or some kind of deeper understanding of life. No, this is messy, real, and unapologetic. If you're curious about how it went down, well, buckle up. It's a ride, and I'm not holding back. Let me take you back to the start of it all. I'm just an average guy, nothing flashy, no millionaire lifestyle or anything like that. I've been married for 11 years, together with her for even longer. We got 2 kids, a mortgage, a pretty standard life. If you asked me before all this happened, I would have told you our marriage wasn't perfect, but it wasn't broken either. I thought we were solid, like that old pair of shoes you had for years. They're a bit worn, but still hold together. Turns out I was wrong, really wrong. The night everything changed started out like any other. I came home from work tired, but looking forward to a quiet evening. She made dinner that night, something nice, like she was trying to put in some extra effort. She had that look on her face, the one that said she wanted to talk, but I wasn't ready for the bomb she was about to drop. We sat down at the table. The kids were already asleep, and I dug in the meal like any other night. But right as I'm getting comfortable, she starts talking. Not the usual small talk about our day or how work was, but real heavy talk about our marriage. Out of nowhere, she starts going on about how things feel stagnant, like our marriage had lost its spark. Her words were like tiny daggers pricking at me, but I tried to stay calm. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't oblivious. I knew things weren't as exciting as they were when we first got together. But hell, that's normal, right? After a decade together, 2 kids and full-time jobs, things tend to slow down. But in my mind, that didn't mean it was over. It just meant we needed to put a little more effort in. Marriage is work, but apparently, I was the only one who thought that way. I sat there, listening to her complain about how bored she was and how our lives had become so predictable. I was halfway through my dinner, fork in hand, when she dropped the real bomb. She wanted to open our relationship. I froze. The food in my mouth seemed to lose all flavor as a wave of shock washed over me. I struggled to keep my expression neutral, but inside, I was screaming. I had anticipated she might suggest counseling, maybe propose ways to reinvigorate our relationship, or even discuss separation. But this was completely unexpected. She continued, oblivious to the rage building up inside me. I don't see it as cheating, she said casually, like she was talking about trying a new diet. Just for a short while. We both need some space, some freedom. Freedom. The nerve. She was sitting across from me, practically giving me a sales pitch about how she could go screw someone else guilt-free. And the way she said it, like it was no big deal, like this was just what normal couples do when they hit a rough patch. She wanted to have her cake and eat it too, to keep the comfort and stability of marriage while getting to fool around without consequence. I didn't say a word. I just kept eating, chewing slowly, nodding here and there like I was considering her proposal. In reality, I was holding back the urge to flip the table and storm out. But something clicked in that moment. As she went on and on about how this could help our marriage, I realized something. It was already dead. Our marriage was a corpse, and she just hadn't admitted it yet. If your wife asks for an open relationship, it's over. She's already checked out emotionally, mentally, hell, probably physically too. What she was really asking for wasn't a break. She had already found someone. I could feel it in the way she was so eager to justify it. Some guy was already in her head, or worse, her bed, and she was trying to make it legit. But instead of blowing up, instead of confronting her right there, I stayed cool. I agreed. Yeah, I agreed to her stupid plan. Why? Because I knew I could play the long game. I knew she thought she'd won, that she just secured her hall pass to screw around while I sat at home like some clueless chump. But what she didn't know was that I had my own plans. If she wanted an open relationship, fine. I'd let her think she was in control, but I'd get my revenge in ways she couldn't even imagine. So yeah, I agreed. I smiled, took another bite of my now tasteless dinner, and said, you know what? Maybe you're right. And that's how it all began. That night after our little open relationship dinner chat, I couldn't sleep. She was next to me, knocked out, wearing those earplugs and that damn mask she swears helps her sleep. I had to laugh a little. Here she was thinking she was slick, but she had no idea what I was about to do. We never used to hide anything from each other. At least that's what I thought. We shared everything, phones, passwords, the whole deal. So when I slid my hand under her pillow to grab her phone, I was really hoping she hadn't changed her password. I took a deep breath, tapped in the code, and boom, it unlocked. I felt a strange rush of excitement and anger all at once. How glad I was that she hadn't changed it. She really thought I wouldn't catch on. The first thing I did was check her messages. I was shaking a little, I won't lie. My mind was racing with a mix of rage and dread about what I was going to find. And it didn't take long. Right there in the middle of the chat app was the idiot she was about to cheat with. Some pretty boy with a smug profile picture. Probably thinking he'd gotten himself some easy side action with my wife. The messages. Oh, they were very frank. Let's just say if she hadn't physically cheated yet, it was only a matter of time. The way they were talking, the way she was responding, it was clear as day she was already gone mentally. Honestly, does it even matter if she hasn't done the deed yet? Betrayal is betrayal, and for me, emotional cheating is just as bad as the physical stuff. And judging by the pictures and emojis they were sending, it wasn't going to stay emotional for long. I took screenshots, saved his Instagram profile, and sent everything to myself just in case I needed proof later. By the time I was done, I had enough ammo to blow this whole thing wide open. But I wasn't ready for that yet. I had to play it smart. So what did I do next? I called in reinforcements. I dialed up a couple of my friends. I knew they'd be pissed I was calling in the middle of the night, but this couldn't wait. I needed them on board with what I was planning, and I needed them now. One by one, I woke them up and told them to meet me at the park. No questions, just show up. We all arrived at almost the same time. It was late, probably around 1 or 2 in the morning, so the park was empty. Just a few streetlights casting long shadows across the grass. They looked confused at first, maybe a little annoyed, but as soon as they saw the look on my face, they knew something serious was going down. "What the hell, man?" one of them asked, rubbing his eyes. I got straight to the point. I laid it all out for them. The dinner, the open relationship, the messages I'd found. They didn't say much at first, just stood there listening, but I could tell they were as shocked as I had been. When I showed them the screenshots, their disbelief turned into anger. "What are you going to do?" one of them asked, eyes wide. I told them my plan. It wasn't fully fleshed out yet, but I had the basics in mind. I needed to get ahead of this. I needed to make sure that when this all blew up, I'd be the one holding the cards, not her, but I needed their help to pull it off. At first, they thought I was nuts. I could see it in their faces. What I was proposing was risky, maybe even a bit over the top. But after some discussion and a few adjustments to the plan, they were on board. We were all in agreement. This had to be handled swiftly and smartly. No half measures. By the time we left the park, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. On one hand, I had my plan. I had my friends backing me up. On the other hand, I knew there was no turning back now. What I was about to do would change everything, and there was no room for second thoughts. I made it back home, snuck back into bed next to her, and lay there for a while staring at the ceiling. The fear started creeping in. What if this all went wrong? What if she found out what I was planning before I could pull it off? But then I thought about those messages, about her smug, carefree attitude, and it wiped the fear away. This had to be done. The next morning, as soon as the sun peeked through the blinds, I was wide awake, my mind racing. I couldn't wait any longer. The previous night's revelation still burned fresh in my head, and I wasn't about to sit around playing the clueless husband. I needed to act, and I needed to do it now. Without hesitation, I grabbed my phone and called a divorce lawyer. It didn't matter that it was early. If this guy was as good as his review said, he'd understand why I was calling at the crack of dawn. When he picked up, I didn't bother with pleasantries. "I want the file for divorce," I said, my voice steady but sharp. "My wife's cheating on me, and I need to start drawing up the documents as soon as possible." There was a brief silence on the other end. Maybe he was surprised by how direct I was, maybe he wasn't. Either way, he quickly got down to business, asking for some basic information and explaining the steps we'd need to take. He said something about gathering evidence, but I cut him off. "Don't worry about that," I told him. "I've already got plenty of it." The lawyer scheduled me for a meeting that afternoon to start the paperwork. As I hung up, I felt a surge of adrenaline. This was real now. I wasn't just some guy catching his wife in an emotional affair. I was about to end a marriage, and as much as it hurt, I wasn't going to let her win, not by a long shot. While I was busy locking down the legal side, the rest of my plan was already in motion. You see, this wasn't just about a divorce. If that was all I wanted, I could have packed my bags and walked away. No, I was in this for revenge. I wasn't going to let her get away with what she was doing so easily. My friends had tracked down the guy, the one my wife was planning to cheat with. It hadn't been hard. The idiot's Instagram was wide open, full of photos of him living some fake wannabe influencer lifestyle. Expensive watches, flashy cars, pictures with models who probably didn't even know his name. Classic loser trying to look more important than he really was. And guess what? The moment my friends confronted him, the guy folded. I had expected some resistance, maybe a little back and forth, but this guy was nothing but a spineless coward. I didn't even need to be there. He gave up everything without so much as a threat. Apparently, he wasn't as bold in real life as he was behind a screen. I swear, man, I didn't know she was married, he babbled, probably thinking he could talk his way out of it. My friends didn't even have to raise their voices. They told him exactly what was going on, that he was caught in the middle of something way bigger than he realized, and he practically begged for a way out. I'll give him this. He knew when he was beat. He didn't try to run or get defensive. He realized that messing with a married woman wasn't just going to blow up in his face. It was going to destroy his life if he wasn't careful. So I gave him an option. He could either disappear and never contact her again, or he could become my little informant. I didn't want him beaten up or anything crazy. That wasn't the point. Sure, I was pissed off, but this wasn't just about him. This was about her. If she didn't want to cheat, this guy wouldn't even be in the picture. So instead of wasting my energy on him, I turned him into a tool. He became useful from that point on. Every little thing he and my wife planned came straight back to me. Their secret rendezvous. I knew about it. Their flirty texts. I had them all saved. My friends kept tabs on him, and he kept me in the loop. I made it clear, if he even thought about warning her, he'd regret it. And just like that, he became my pawn. He fed me information, and in return, he got to keep his face intact and his life relatively unscathed. Then came the day of their big meeting, the day she thought she was being so clever sneaking off for the weekend. It was a Friday afternoon when she casually mentioned over breakfast that she'd be going to her parents' house for a few days. I could see right through her, that fake nonchalant tone like she was just planning a quiet family visit. But I knew exactly where she was going. I'm going to spend the weekend with my parents, she said, sipping her coffee like it was no big deal. I just smiled, playing the clueless husband she thought I was. Oh, well, that's nice, I replied, trying not to choke on my own amusement. Give them my regards. She smiled back, probably thinking she'd gotten away with it, that she could go off and do whatever she wanted while I stayed home like some oblivious fool. But inside, I was already setting the next phase of my plan in motion. The moment she left the house, I was ready. It was time to move from defense to offense. The real game was just about to begin. As soon as the door closed behind her, my heart was pounding, not out of fear, but out of anticipation. I wasn't just playing the victim here. I was in control. I grabbed my phone, texted my friends, and told them it was time. A half hour later, they pulled up outside with a party in tow, booze, laughter, and 3 younger girls who were more than willing to liven things up. The energy shifted the moment they walked in, like the air in the house changed. In a way, it was the turning point. We wasted no time. The drinks flowed freely, and the conversations got louder and more playful as the alcohol did its job. We were laughing like idiots, throwing back shots, and toasting to the most ridiculous things. It felt surreal. These girls, all in their 20s, brought a kind of youthful chaos that I hadn't felt in years. They were flirty, carefree, and didn't give a damn about anything except having fun. The more we drank, the more I could feel the weight of everything lifting off me, even if just for a little while. In the middle of it all, I felt that buzzing thrill deep down because I knew something my wife didn't. Her little boyfriend wasn't showing up. He had blocked her, probably too afraid of what might happen if things got messy. I had orchestrated that part too. He was my puppet, and he didn't even realize it. While she thought she was off to enjoy a secret weekend rendezvous, I knew she'd be turning around sooner than later, pissed off and probably humiliated when he ghosted her. She'd have no choice but to come back home. But until then, I was going to enjoy myself. The girls, now tipsy and laughing hysterically, suggested we move things to the bedroom. The tension in the air had changed, playful and charged. I could feel my own inhibitions slipping away with each shot I took. Why not? This was the revenge she never saw coming. We headed upstairs, one of them tugging on my arm, leading me toward the bedroom like it was all some kind of wild game. Inside the bedroom, things escalated quickly. The girls were giggling, taking off their tops as if it was the most natural thing in the world. And the next thing I knew, I was joining in piece by piece. It felt surreal, the warm haze of alcohol, the thrill of the moment, the sense of freedom. I'd spent so long being the loyal husband, the dependable guy who worked hard, provided, and was always there. But this was something else. It was like being let loose after years of restraint, and I didn't care about anything but the moment. As we got undressed, the feeling of revenge burned hotter inside me. I was enjoying it, letting go, wrapped up in the reckless abandon of it all. The three of them, younger, energetic, and completely uninhibited, made the whole thing feel like I was in some kind of alternate reality. I won't lie, it was exhilarating. The kind of sex that makes you forget everything else, where nothing else matters but the feeling, the rush, the heat of the moment. And then, just when I thought I was completely lost in it, I heard a sound. Her voice cut through the haze. "What the hell is going on here?" she screamed. I didn't even hear the front door open or her come up the stairs, but there she was standing in the doorway. Her face was contorted in shock, disbelief, and rage. Her eyes scanned the room, taking in the sight of me in bed with three women, half naked, the whole room reeking of booze and bad decisions. I paused for a second, but only long enough to turn my head toward her with the biggest, most sarcastic smile I could muster. "Oh, this?" I said, my voice dripping with mockery. "It's just a free relationship, dear. You know, like you wanted. By the way, how are your parents?" Her face turned from red to pale in a matter of seconds. I could see the realization hit her like a truck. She knew that I knew, that I had planned all of this, and the fact that I had turned the tables on her like this, it destroyed her. I could see it in her eyes. She lost it in a furious frenzy. She lunged toward the bed, ripping the girls off of me one by one, her hands shaking with anger as she threw their clothes at them and screamed for them to get out. The girls, giggling and stumbling from the alcohol, didn't even put up a fight. They gathered their things as quickly as they could and left, half-dressed. Their laughter echoed down the stairs and out the door. To them, it was just some wild night that had gone a little sideways. When the girls were gone, she collapsed onto the edge of the bed, her hands covering her face as the sobs began. And not the quiet, soft kind of crying, the full-on, ugly, heaving sobs that shake your whole body. She couldn't control it. She didn't know what to do, and honestly, I didn't care. I calmly got dressed while she sat there, breaking down beside me. I didn't rush. I took my time putting on my clothes, buttoning my shirt, adjusting my belt. Once I was done, I sat down next to her on the bed. I didn't feel sorry for her. Not anymore. This was her doing, her choice. She had pushed us here, and now she was paying the price. "How was your date?" I asked, my tone almost casual. She looked up at me, her eyes red and puffy, the tears still streaming down her cheeks. That's when it hit her. She knew I had done this. She knew I had set her up, that I had planned the whole thing. She didn't have to say it. The look in her eyes said it all. She opened her mouth to say something, but I cut her off. "Don't bother," I said, my voice calm but firm. "A lawyer's going to call you tomorrow. We're done. I'm filing for divorce." I stood up, looking down at her one last time. There's no point in fighting or yelling. It won't change anything. What's done is done. And just like that, I walked out of the room, leaving her there to cry. No more arguments, no more drama. I was done with it all. She made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. The next day, after everything that had happened, I knew I needed to clear my head and talk it out with my friends. We've been through a lot together over the years, but this was a new level of crazy. I texted them in the morning, and they all agreed to meet at our usual spot, the local bar where we'd spent countless nights shooting the breeze and sharing stories. But today, the story was all mine. When I walked into the bar, they were already there, seated around our usual table, beers in hand, and grinning like they knew exactly what was coming. As soon as I sat down, one of them leaned forward and said, "All right, man, we've been dying to hear how it went down. Don't leave out a single detail." I didn't need much encouragement. I started from the beginning, telling them everything. From the moment my wife left the house thinking she was off to her affair to the moment I knew her lover had blocked her, leaving her to come home to an unexpected surprise. My friends were glued to every word, laughing and shaking their heads in disbelief as I recounted the scene in the bedroom. The booze, the girls, and of course, the grand finale. My wife walking in on me in the middle of the act. Wait, one of my buddies interrupted, barely able to contain his excitement. You have to tell us more about her reaction. It sounds like you've really turned your life around since everything went down. The way you handled the aftermath of your divorce and focused on rebuilding yourself is impressive. It's clear that you found a new sense of purpose and direction, not just professionally but personally as well. Your story is a powerful reminder that even when things seem to be falling apart, there's always a chance to rebuild and come out stronger. Reclaiming your dignity and focusing on what truly matters to you, like your career and personal growth, seems to have been a key part of your healing process. It's also great to hear that you're enjoying your own company again and that you found someone new who brings positivity into your life. Taking things slow and being honest with yourself about what you want sounds like a wise approach. Thank you for sharing this update. It's inspiring to see how you've managed to create a new chapter for yourself. If there's anything else you want to talk about or any new developments in your life, I'm here to listen.